The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Yes, hello everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat, the podcast about deliciousness. I am your host, Rob Rosenthal. Excited about tonight's episode number 23, by the way. Coming to you live on the 15th day of August, 2018. But rather than coming to you from New York City, the normal kind of studio from which I operate today, I am remote, if you will, here in the Hamptons. And the Hamptons, for those of you who don't know, is just under 100 miles from New York City, and is situated on the Atlantic Ocean. And it's a very special and beautiful place, which I want to tell you a little bit about. I'm excited tonight about a number of things. One, to be here. Two, I have some really luscious-looking recipes that I have picked up today from a variety of sources, including the New York Times. Wednesday is their big food day. And I also picked up something from Food and Wine magazine, which is like their 40 greatest recipes of all time. And there's a couple in there that are superb, tasty looking, and simple recipes, ideal for summer. I'm also looking very much forward to playing you a brief conversation that I had with my friend Harry Ludlow, who is a local, I think he's way more than a farmer. They run an entire operation called Fairview Farms in Bridgehampton, New York, and Harry's family has been here for a long time, at least 5 generations. So I'm going to play that little piece for you later. And so, it's that kind of thing. Oh, by the way, if you want to call in, let me see if I have the number handy, and I'm never really 100% positive that it's going to work, but if you want to call in and chat about anything, the number here, and we're coming to you live, is 800-508-5431. Again, 800-508-5431. And if that works, of course, I will pick up your call and we can chat about things. I start today, however, with the New York Times, because on Wednesdays, of course, they do food and cooking, and that includes, incidentally, not only stories, but also some recipes that they entitle "What's Cooked This Week," and I picked up a couple that I thought really super for this time of year. The Hamptons. I just as an aside here, I guess it's not an aside, is it? Well, whatever it is, I grabbed some lunch today in the Hamptons at the local bagel operation, and I've been having a lot of turkey sandwiches lately. I've been having so many turkey sandwiches for some reason that I felt like I could almost have an Instagram account devoted to turkey sandwiches. Anyway, I pop into an operation called Goldberg's, that's in Southampton, New York, and went for the turkey with some lettuce and a little bit of cucumber, a little sliced thin cucumber, and a touch of red onion, a little piece of Swiss in there, and I put it not on multigrain, not even on a bagel, but I went on a flagel. If you're not familiar with a flagel, it's a flat bagel, and it's a thing of beauty. And that sandwich was lovely, but I have to be honest, I'm still full 6 hours later from that thing. I'm full from that. Coming to you from the Hamptons. Now, if you don't know about the Hamptons, It's really a special place. It's a beautiful place. It's a place with not only farms and fields and open views, but beaches that are among the best, certainly, in the United States of America. People, who are not from New York, and let's take California for an example. When I tell people from other places that I live in New York and we have some of the best beaches in the world, they don't even take me seriously. Like, they don't understand that less than 100 miles from New York City is not only the Hamptons, but Long Island itself is about 100 miles of coastline, of Atlantic Ocean coastline. In fact, when I say that we have some of the nicest beaches in the country, it's not even necessarily, you don't even have to take it from me. There's a guy who goes by the name of Dr. Beach. You can look up Dr. Beach. For the past 20 years or so, Dr. Beach compiles scientifically a listing of the best public beaches in America. And some of those beaches are going to be in public beaches. Some of them are going to be in Hawaii. And some of them are going to be around the country, and some of them will always be out here on the east end of Long Island. You will always find Cooper's Beach, which is Southampton. You'll always find in that list of top 10 or 20 beaches, Main Beach in East Hampton. And if you want to see for yourself, I think just, Google up Dr. Beach Top 20 and take a look. The beaches are stunning. The water is perfect and clean. We have dunes. They are devoid out here of any type of commercial activity. You're not going to see a boardwalk. You're not going to see amusement parks. You're not going to see a pizza place. It's you, ocean, clean sand, dunes, beach, stunning. The Hamptons are also a place of enormous wealth. And with that comes a certain lifestyle, a certain scene that's particularly prevalent and popular in the summer months of July and August especially. And the place, Hamptons, that is home to a lot of not only money people, Wall Street people, CEO type people, but, celebrities. Howard Stern has a place, Matt Lauer, Alec Baldwin. You'll find J-Lo and A-Rod floating around town. It is a magnet for celebrities, especially this time of year. And the wealth, I suppose, is both a good thing and a bad. It's a place that politicians are going to show up to throw fundraisers because it's kind of like fish in a, shooting fish in a barrel type situation. And it's an amazing party scene. And I'll say this, in terms of also what's grown here on what used to be predominantly farmland, especially in Bridgehampton, is incredible. In terms of the fruits, the vegetables, there's just a lot going on that is extraordinary. The other side of the money, of course, is that I like to think of it oftentimes as the epicenter of entitlement. But you got to take the good with the bad. And that entitlement piece is, again, it's particularly noticeable this time of year because we're at what is essentially, the American Riviera in some ways. There are 3 books that I will make reference to for those who are more interested in the subject. One is called Hamptons Babylon. The author of Hamptons Babylon is Peter Ferron, Ferron. Hamptons Babylon, Life Among the Super Rich on America's Riviera. Here's a little excerpt, I suppose, from the very back page. More than simply a fashionable destination for celebrities, the Hamptons are one of the most dense concentrations of wealth and therefore power anywhere in the world. I'm quoting from the book. The old Soviet Union's military machine acknowledged the Hamptons' uniqueness in this regard. In the 70s, the Soviets became concerned that should nuclear Armageddon come on a summer weekend, some of America's wealthiest power brokers might be aware of it only as an especially marvelous sunset, and theoretically, at any rate, survive the destruction of New York City by conveniently being in their dockas in the Hamptons. So they acknowledged the village of East Hampton as a separate primary nuclear target, fixing as ground zero the Old Hook windmill built in 1806 by Nathaniel Dominy, and one of the finest examples of windmill architecture in the United States. That's from Hamptons, Babylon. You might also pick up a copy of a book called Philistines at the Hedgerow, Passion and Property in the Hamptons by Stephen Gaines. Philistines at the Hedgerow, Passion and Property in the Hamptons is the first ever social history of the most exclusive and unusual enclave in America. Stephen Gaines gets inside the world behind the walled estates and rolling dunes in a mesmerizing story of money, celebrity, property, and eccentric characters. And suppose you really just need a good summer read to hang out on the beach. I guess it's a little. I don't want to put down the book. I actually enjoyed it, and I don't even read this. I mean, literally, I'm a guy that reads, nonfiction, and yet. A woman by the name of Holly Peterson, who is a best-selling author. She is the author of The Manny, wrote a book called Happens in the Hamptons. So if you're looking for a kind of a summer beach, breezy, trashy in the best possible way book, you can grab yourself Happens in the Hamptons. Hamptons in the Hamptons. What are they eating out here? Certainly, they're not having a whole lot of bagels. But, in today's issue of Hamptons magazine is an article called Triple Threat. This summer, Hamptonites hungered for this top trio of divine dishes. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is what they're eating out in the Hamptons right now. The lobster Cobb salad over at Duryea's in Montauk. The Cobb salad became an instant classic when it launched at LA's Brown Derby in 1937, but that doesn't mean a little tweak or two can't improve on the original. Duryea's decadent version, rife with chunks of lobster, shaved Fairview Farm cheddar cheese, and crunchy chopped bits of smoky bacon, along with diced avocado, hard-boiled eggs, heirloom cherry tomatoes, and a house-made tarragon dressing, all atop a cradle of crispy gem lettuce leaves, has been the star of the show all summer long. How great does that sound? That's a classic kind of Hamptons dish. And I particularly call your attention to the fact that they're using shaved cheddar cheese from Fairview Farm, and it's Fairview Farm in Bridgehampton that is owned and operated by Harry Ludlow and the Ludlow family, and he is the guy that we're going to hear from momentarily about what's happening over at Fairview Farm, what they're making, and what's happening in general here in terms of what's good in the Hamptons. Here are the two other dishes on your triple treat, and they're both veg dishes, because, out here you got to stay thin in the summer. So over at a restaurant called Almond in Bridgehampton is a dish called Marilee's Crispy Broccoli. Leave it to the local veg-loving stylings of Chef Jason Weiner to make broccoli the sleeper hit of the season. But of course, this is no ho-hum side dish. Weiner uses snappy, fresh green stalks from Sagaponic farmer Marilee Foster. Foster Farm's great. Combines them with perfectly pungent garlic scapes and roasted shiitake mushrooms, and tucks the whole shebang into a pillow of creamy hemp tahini. Nope, this is definitely not your grandma's broiled bird's eye broccoli. And then finally, there's Lulu's roasted heirloom cauliflower from the Lulu Kitchen and Bar in Sag Harbor. While we're on the topic of cruciferous champs, if you somehow missed Lulu Kitchen and Bar's grilled cauliflower, you need to get it ASAP. The depth of flavor derived from Lulu's wood-fired oven sends things over the top from the get-go. with added textural elements like the crunch of toasted sesame seeds, the tang and creaminess of yogurt, and the gentle sweet tart spike from roasted, locally grown grapes and white balsamic vinaigrette, you'll become a cauliflower devotee. Faster than you can say. Farm stand. Yeah, it's happening in the Hamptons. So I had a chat, only a few hours ago with the one and only Harry Ludlow, and if we don't run into the usual technical issues that are literally a hallmark of this program, here is my discussion with my man, Harry Ludlow. The one and only Harry Ludlow, who is he's the big boss here at the Fairview Farm, right smack in the middle of Bridgehampton, New York. Harry, how are you?
I'm doing just great, thank you.
Yes, you are. Harry, and everybody loves Harry, but I really want to talk about the Hamptons and farming. And Harry, how long has the farm here or the land here been in the family?
We've been here since the 1870s. I look pretty good for that, don't I?
You look unbelievable for a man that should be somewhere around 148 years old, or if my math is right. So has the Ludlow family been farming in all? How many generations are we talking about? 7?
So that's about 5 generations. We're kind of slow to the gun sometimes. Yeah, we take it easy on that.
And has the family been in the farming all of that time?
Well, for those generations, yes. Before that, there were some whaling ship captains sailing out of Sag Harbor. Before that, there was some Revolutionary War people. We date back to the 1640s.
So the first question that I ask you is, did you grow up there? Did you go to like Bridgehampton High School?
Well, sort of. I'm kind of still growing up, according to some people. But yeah, I went to the Bridgehampton High School. Then I went off for 4 years to college. Came back, farmed potatoes forever, it seemed. And then in the year 2001, we started the retail operation.
Before we get into retail, I guess what I want to know is this. It's pretty, other than the farm area and the land, what was it like growing up? I mean, there had to be a lot more farm and a lot fewer homes, yes?
Well, most of the farms we see from this vantage point are since 1980. There was quite a large rate of development in the town of Southampton for the 20 years from 1980 to 2000, and even in the 70s for that matter. If you look through the history of the town, there were increases in houses regularly throughout that whole time period from 1640 to present. But the accelerated rate happened in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And that's what got a lot of attention.
And prior to that, wasn't most of the land out here, farmland?
It was. Bridgehampton is one of the 3 primary agricultural areas in Suffolk County. Riverhead being another one, and the Mattatuck area, Cutchogue being a third. So yeah, this was very much agricultural. It was thought of as an agricultural community, as opposed to now, which is thought of as a tourist community. So there's a transition that I would say spanned those decades in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, so that we now think of ourselves as farming, but we're catering to the retail, which is the tourist trade.
And when did you say you went into the retail part of the business?
2001 was our first year.
So you're doing this for about 17 years. And what can people come and find here at the Fairview Farm?
We grow pretty much any vegetable that can grow in this area, all the way from asparagus and lettuce and spinach at the start of the season, on to potatoes and eggplant, tomatoes, peppers, carrots, beets, cabbage, cauliflower, pumpkins, onions, garlic. We do pretty much all of it. Beans, peppers. We do shishito peppers and padron peppers. We try to grow things. Well, obviously, we wouldn't grow things that we can sell, but we try to cater to the clientele that's out here. And there are people looking for the best quality products that money can buy. And with us farming on Bridgehampton silt loam soil in an area near the ocean, we have the benefit of some of the best climate in the world for growing vegetables.
And what about the soil?
And the soil, it's hard to find better soil than Haven and Bridgehampton Silt Loam.
So, in addition to all the stuff that you farm, and by the way, that corn that I had last time was so spectacular, and I'm excited now about the tomatoes because I'm a tomato lover. But in addition to all the stuff that you farm and sell, there are all these fabulous-looking baked goods and roast ducks and everything else. So you have so talk about that. You have the whole family essentially working the operation, and what else goes on here besides the fruits and vegetables?
Well, we try to make it a stand for all people, for all meals of the day. And to do that, we have an improved kitchen by New York State. So we can produce as much as our creativity will allow. And what we do is we make cookies, pies, we make bread, guacamole, we do dill pickles, we do chicken salad, we do pulled pork, banana muffins, and all kinds of other things as the season progresses and as we have things available to use as the raw ingredients. We have a corn maze in the fall, so that extends our marketing season. And we do pick your own pumpkins and other activities that are fall related. And we also have meats. We grow pigs, we grow chickens. We have access to lambs for my brother-in-law. And one of his students graduated and started a beef farm, so we get her beef. And those two items are from Connecticut. So now someone can come in here and actually buy the complete meal from soup to nuts, so to speak, right here with one stop.
Yeah, I can certainly vouch for that. And all of that stuff is of the highest quality. But the thing that you can't kind of keep enough of is these pies. People are bananas, and not that you have a banana pie, but there's people are bananas about the pies, among everything else that you have.
The pies have been my daughter's invention. She's the one that's developed the recipe, and she's made mistakes and corrected them and unpacked it and redone it and has made all the mistakes you can imagine. So she's learned them inside and out. And now we have a product that is pretty much what we're looking for. This is where we want to be. And it's been very well accepted by the public. We've been very fortunate for that, so that we can give, I believe, some of the finest desserts that money can buy.
And it's true when I say that you're somewhat of a celebrity out here in the Hamptons, in that everybody knows you. I can open up a Dan's paper and find a picture of you at some event. And when people come in, they are very excited to see you behind the cash register and doing what it is that you do.
Well, that's great to say all that. I don't really know how accurate all that is, but I'm here every day. We do our job here. Everybody works hard. I get to be the front. I get to develop, to show the good products that are produced by my family in the field and in the kitchen. So people look at me and think that I've done all that when I really haven't done much at all. But I'm the showpiece.
It is the best of all possible worlds. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Harry Ludlow. We're here in Bridgehampton. Tell people, Harry, who have not had the good fortune yet to show up here, exactly where they can find the Fairview Farm.
Well, we're located on 19 Horsemill Lane in Bridgehampton, but if you use GPS, they don't like to see Bridgehampton. They often call it Watermill on the database. And you can see us. There's a farm stand here, and the first thing you'll see is the cut flowers that my wife arranges. She's the artist, and every arrangement is different. And then we have all the displays of vegetables on the front here and fruits. So it's not hard to find us if you come down Mecox Road.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Harry Ludlow, thank you so very much. And folks, if you have the chance, or even if you have not yet, get yourself over to Fairview Farm. Get yourself some corn, get tomatoes, get yourself a rotisserie chicken and some pie and everything else in here. Thank you, Harry.
What are you doing?
Well, there you have it. Harry Ludlow, local celebrity, if you will, and farmer and retailer, and more importantly, they're putting out some just great stuff, whether it comes out of the ground or whether or not they make it. I mean, I'm serious. The corn, he handed me a corn a week or two ago, and I, just to peel and eat right there. It didn't have to be cooked or anything. Sweet as sugar. Fantastic. And now the tomatoes are starting to show up. And okay, yes, I am somewhat biased, but the tomatoes out here, when they're good and they're in their peak, are as good as any tomato that you can have anywhere in this country. And no joke, all you really need is to slice it and give it a little bit of salt, and you're happy. But it's the time of year that there's just, I make salads with tomatoes. You can do that pan tomate, which I'm going to give you a recipe for in a little while, where you literally just rub a piece of grilled bread with some garlic and tomato, and it's like, that's just some heaven. But, you can also pop in there for a peach raspberry pie is just is breathtaking. So anyway, Hamptons, beautifulness, beaches, farms, and of course deliciousness, which is the nature of this podcast. Now, let's segue back over. I should point out, incidentally, that I have, as I like to do, because it's 8-something at night here on the East Coast, and I've blended myself a good old proper martini. Now, don't tell anybody, because when you're in the Hamptons, you can actually be fined for not drinking rosé. I'm sorry, it's like a local ordinance where if you don't drink rosé, you're going to get in trouble. But anyway, I am going to sip on the martini and segue over to the New York Times food section, where today a couple of recipes stood out, as well as a story. I think, though, what do we do first? We do the story? No, let's go right to the recipes, right? Because corn is so happening right now. And here's a recipe in today's New York Times cooking section, which you can look up, but I'm going to tell you what the deal is, because I'm big on concept, meaning that I'm going to tell you what the key ingredients are. And honestly, if you use those ingredients in whatever proportion you so choose, there will be happiness. This dish, which takes advantage of corn at the height of corn season, is an orecchiette with corn, jalapeno, feta, and basil. Now, I don't know about you, but that just automatically sounds good to me. 4 servings, 30 minutes. Sweet. Peak season corn is at the heart of this flavorful and simple to make summer pasta. Jalapeno offers a pleasant kick, and the feta cheese tossed in at the end melts slightly, giving the sauce a silky texture. It's worth seeking out orecchiette, as it nicely catches the corn kernels, creating perfect bites. If you can't find it, fusilli or farfalle would work in its place, served with a bright, simple salad alongside fresh fruit for dessert. Are you ready, people? A pound of orecchiette. What's orecchiette? It's like, was it translated to like little ears, doesn't it? You know that. It's that little perfectly bite-sized, crinkly, God, it's so good. I love that orecchiette. A pound of orecchiette, get some 4 tablespoons of butter, 1 jalapeno, 5 ears of corn that you shuck with the kernels removed. And then you need some salt, 8 ounces of crumbled feta cheese, a half a cup of torn basil leaves, maybe some more for a serving, and a little bit of flaky salt as well. You ready? Bring a large pot of well-salted water to a boil. When I say well-salted, by the way, you need to know that when you salt water for pasta, you're essentially attempting to replicate the level of salt in the sea. I mean, it's a lot of salt. And it's okay. It's okay. It's going in your pasta water. Add the pasta, cook until just short of al dente. It's going to be 10 minutes. Drain and reserve a cup of the pasta cooking water. If you don't know that. Always reserve a little cup of that pasta cooking water, because it's slightly starchy, slightly salty, and you might be using some of it, if not all of it, to kind of, bring the whole sauce together. Step 2. While the pasta cooks, make the sauce. In a 12-inch skillet, melt butter over medium heat. Add in your jalapeno. Cook until it's soft. That's going to be a minute or 2. Add the corn. and then cook until it begins to brown in spots. That's 3 or 4 minutes. Season with salt. Add 1/4 cup of that pasta water. Bring it to the simmer and cook it until it's reduced by half. That's 1 or 2 minutes. This is easy stuff, people. Easy. Step 3. By the way, step 3 is your final step. Take your pasta, add it to the skillet, tossing to coat with the sauce. Then add in your feta cheese and an additional 1/4 cup of the pasta water, tossing until pasta is slick and glossy with sauce. If needed, add in another 1/4 cup of pasta water. Stir in the basil. Transfer to a large bowl and scatter with the remaining basil. Season with flaky salt if desired. I mean, that's it. This is what I love. 4 or 5 ingredients. Simple deliciousness. New York Times. Orecchiette with corn, jalapeno, feta, and basil. Perfect for this time of year. Love that. There was another thing that I got to say caught my attention in the Times today, and it's headline Steakhouse Classics. Julia Moskin, great writer for the Times. Let's see, what does she say about this? Charred and crusty steak. Sometimes you just feel like you want to have a red meat. Ready sliced, scattered with chunks. You ready for this? Scattered with chunks. And this is why. Okay, fine. So first of all, it's steak. But again, with tomato season upon us, listen to this recipe. Charred and crusty piece of steak, ready sliced, scattered with chunks of blood-ripe tomato, knobs of blue cheese, and rings of white onion. The juices in the platter had been touched with sherry vinegar, just enough to set off the rich meat. It was a brilliant combination of steakhouse classics: tomato onion salad, blue cheese dressing, rare steak, and it made a perfect easy summer meal. Here's what she says. You could make this tonight. You could make it tomorrow night because it's a little bit late right now, I confess. But I'm like, this would so work for me. On the way home, pick up a thick steak, a ripe tomato for each person you're cooking for, and a chunk of blue cheese to crumble, along with some crusty bread for the juices, which we like to call in my family soppage. You need the bread for the soppage. After grilling and slicing the steak, transfer to a platter, top it with diced tomatoes, a big handful of crumbled blue cheese, and a thinly sliced onion from your pantry. Pantry, that's funny. Sprinkle a teaspoon of sherry or balsamic vinegar over everything. Pro tip, and this is important, by the way, the pro tip. If you don't like raw onion, soak the thin slices in ice water for half an hour before serving them to tame the bite and make them super crisp. Super tip, by the way, and we do this a lot, which is that onion can have a little bit too much of a bite, and the easiest way to minimize that is to do exactly what it is that she said. Slice it thin, drop it in ice water for a half hour, and then drain it before you use it. How's that for a recipe? I could go for that so right now. You know, I say I could go for it now, and I still don't have an appetite because I kind of filled up on that giant sandwich. Which leads me to the final piece that showed up in the Times today. Headline, Food Quality Trumps Variety, experts say. People whose diets contain the greatest variety of foods tended to eat many nutritious foods, but also many junk foods. I don't know. This article basically says the following. Bear with me. For decades, nutrition experts have encouraged Americans to eat a variety of foods to ensure that they consume a nutritionally adequate diet. But this week, a panel of experts said that long-standing recommendation might be outdated. The advice to consume a variety of foods has long been included in the federal government's dietary guidelines, largely based on old studies of low-income populations that found that consuming a broad range of food helped prevent nutritional deficiencies. Well, guess what? That's no longer the case. The panel released a scientific report on Thursday in the journal Circulation that found that in some studies, people whose diets contain the greatest variety of foods tended to eat many more nutritious foods like fish, fruits, and vegetables, but also many junk foods such as sugary snacks and beverages, refined grains, and other processed foods. There's no mention of the martini. But here is the conclusion to the article. Quote, we want the general public to know that it's okay if your diet is not diverse, if you're focusing on healthy foods and trying to minimize consumption of unhealthy foods, she said. Somebody paid a lot of money for a study that essentially concludes eat healthy foods and not unhealthy ones. Excuse me while I sip on the martini. What's next here? Food and Wine. Food and Wine magazine, and you can find this online, because I think magazines, I don't know. Magazines are an old concept. They came on paper, and you could buy them at a newsstand or in the mail. They're essentially obsolete. So, again, this is online at Food and Wine, and the article is called the 40 best ever recipes from Food and Wine. Now, Food and Wine's been in business for, I'm thinking, like 40 years. And, well, here's what it says. Of the more than 24,000 recipes we've published since 1978, these are the ones that were so memorable, so revelatory, and so delicious that we're still making them 4 decades after we first tasted them. So pour a glass of something bubbly, wrong. Fire up the oven, right, and celebrate our 40th birthday with us in true Food and Wine style. I'm not going to go through all 40 of them, but let me throw out a couple that may interest you enough to go and check out the Food and Wine website for these. The first shows up as the Grand Marnier souffle. Inaugural issue of Food and Wine, legendary chef Jacques Pepin shared his recipe for the perfect souffle. Pepin, who recently published his tome of French cooking, La Technique, and would go on to become one of Food and Wine's greatest contributing editors, was the perfect candidate to teach readers about towering, golden-roofed, steamily fragrant souffles, giving detailed directions on everything from preparing the mold and the challah to beating the eggs properly. This ethereal recipe is as good today as it was in 1978, showing that some dishes are simply timeless. What else you got? Food and Wine, potato and egg pie with bacon and creme fraiche. Okay. Poulet au vinaigre. You see, I like poulet au vinaigre because it's chicken and vinegar. I like it a lot. One of the world's most celebrated chefs and leader of the French Nouvelle Cuisine movement, Paul Bocuse, was an icon. His irresistible chicken cooked with vinegar represented two big trends at the time: big, bold flavor and a focus on overall lightness, which Bocuse championed. With just a handful of ingredients and simple directions, this is a dish we have never stopped making. This version swaps fresh tomatoes for tomato paste, uses low-acid rice vinegar in place of red wine, and significantly reduces the amount of butter. But I'll tell you what, man. Chicken, vinegar, good. Happy. Here's one for you. And I'm giving you this one because they actually taught us how to make it in cooking school. What do they call it? I think they call it ouf à la morette. It's poached eggs with a red wine sauce. Anne Willan, founder of the prestigious École de Cuisine La Varenne in France, expounded the virtues of cooking with wine and shared a recipe for classic ouf poché en morette, a Burgundian preparation reminiscent of eggs Benedict with egg-top buttered toast rounds. Traditionally, the eggs in the dish are poached in the red wine. Adds a bit of flavor, but the eggs take on a grayish-purple color. This version calls for eggs that have been poached in water, then assembled with the red wine sauce at the end. In her version, Willan used red burgundy to make a rich, glossy sauce studded with bits of bacon, which she spooned over the runny egg. She didn't insist on using Burgundian wine, but she strongly advised the cook, if it's not fit to drink, it is not fit for the pot. Just a reminder, people, you're going to use wine in food, you better make sure it's good wine. Wine that you would drink happily. What else they have in here? The ultimate chocolate mousse. You see, I don't care about a souffle that much, but I'd be happy to have a mousse. What does mousse mean? Mousse is foam. Yeah? To celebrate chocolate in its most delectable guises, we asked some of the best cooks, Julia Child, James Beard, Maida Heater, and more, to share their favorite chocolate recipes. Craig Claiborne, who was the New York Times restaurant critic and one of the top food journalists at the time, shared this remarkable chocolate mousse, which could be reliably whipped up without tremendous effort. In his original head note for the recipe, Claiborne says, once in a rare while, I discover a formula for a dish that seems the ultimate, the definitive, the ne plus ultra. I am convinced that the finest chocolate mousse creation ever whipped up in my kitchen is the one printed here. As if you didn't know. Oh, mousse means foam in French. This mousse is the foamiest. The key to the recipe, and this is the key, incidentally, to every recipe, so, I've been saying this forever. The key to the recipe is to use the very best semi-sweet dark chocolate you can find. It says we like Valrhona, so do I. The better the chocolate, the better the mousse. There's a recipe for shrimp creole, which is coming out of Emerald Lagasse, and I'm not going to go through it, but I'm looking at a picture of it, and, if you like shrimp as much as I do, you're going to want to make shrimp creole. Garlicky braised lamb shacks with sweet peppers looks fabulous. From Jeremiah Tower, the father of California cuisine. It's not really an ideal kind of summer dish, so let's just skip it. Although, come fall and winter, I'll take some braised lamb shacks in a heartbeat. That's just great eating. Great eating. Recipe for deep dish all-American cinnamon apple pie. Yeah, that looks really, really good. Oh, this is good too. And I've been on a kind of a Korean kick. So here's a recipe in here. Again, one of their 40 top recipes of all time, the grilled Korean style short ribs. You go to your butcher, you're getting 3 or 4 ribs across the bone, half-inch pieces. You marinate this stuff overnight and cook it hot on the grill, and you serve it with some, so the marinade is a sake, soy, sugar, garlic, sesame oil, classic. Serve it with kimchi, that's your pickled fermented cabbage, lettuce leaves, and steamed rice. I want that right now. God, is there anything I don't want? This recipe looks so good. I'll never make it because it feels complicated to me, but it's called, sizzling pancakes, but it's a Vietnamese thing. Crisp and lacy rice crepes colored with turmeric and studded with caramelized onion, shrimp, pork, and bean sprouts. Vietnamese name of the dish translates to sizzling cake, so called for the sizzling sound the batter makes when it hits the pan. Now here's one for you, because there's no better time for a salad than summer. It's like salad and summer go together. And I've spoken before about getting the best tomatoes you can, and you can do them straight up. You can serve them, Italian style with a little bit of fresh mozzarella and some basil, your caprese. I do a recipe that I found somewhere in Bon Appetit years ago where I'm cutting up great tomatoes and I'm serving it with a gorgonzola, olives, capers, some red onion. It's just fantastical. But the recipe here in Food and Wine is you bake goat cheese salad. And so there's the idea when you have lettuce, and you have these softly baked kind of thyme and breadcrumb coated goat cheese little things that are easy to make, and some crunchy garlic croutons. And this is an Alice Waters recipe, who said only the best is good enough. Use the best you can find. Seared salmon. I'm not a salmon guy. It's not that I don't ever have it. I'm just, some people love it. I could care less, honestly. But this is a classic recipe from Union Square Cafe, one of the defining restaurants of the early 90s. And it says here, critics and diners were delighted by Danny Meyer's devout attention to hospitality and couldn't get enough of Chef Michael Romano's remarkable green market-centric American Italian food. Certain dishes defined the restaurant, that's for sure, including Romano's seared salmon, which was one of the most popular items on the menu, and one of the best recipes we ever published. The myriad vegetables in the recipe. Ready? Corn, spinach, shiitakes, and tomato. Sing of late summer. This recipe serves, 3 or 4 main course can be doubled. Okay, so there you go. Oh, here's one for you, too. Again, perfect for the summer, simple. I think the greatest food, none of these recipes that I'm giving you, require more than a half a dozen, if I see more than 7, 8 ingredients on a recipe, to be honest with you, I'm not making it. I'm not in the mood. My eyes shut. I don't want to know. But here's swordfish Sicilian style, right? You get a great piece of swordfish. You're going to grill it on the grill. You don't have to do a lot. Just grill the swordfish on the grill. Don't kill it. It's already dead. Respect it. But then, I'm not even gonna follow the food and wine recipe, but the concept is the same, right? The concept is the same, which is that my friend Anthony Gilio, Wine Wise Guy, who was on, I don't know, podcast number 2 or 3 with me, his Sicilian grandmother or mother-in-law taught him a technique which he's used. I learned it from him, and it's basically a hot bath. It's a bath, but the bath is good olive oil, fresh lemon, herbs, fresh herbs, salt, right? And so when that swordfish comes off the grill, you literally drop it in this bath and let it soak up the fabulousness of the olive oil that's been flavored with lemon and salt and an herb. Let's go to this recipe just for fun, and let's just see what their recipe looks like. All right, here we go. Right, okay, and so, sure, great time to have a slow internet. Oh, God, is that annoying. All right, forget it. I'm just saying that there's, swordfish. Yeah, here you go. Oh, yeah, of course. You ready for this? Oh, my God, 2 steps. I'm going to give you their recipe, but keep in mind what I said. 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of chopped fresh oregano, or a teaspoon of dried oregano, 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil, freshly ground pepper, 2 pounds of swordfish steaks cut a 1/2 inch thick. 2 steps: light a grill or preheat the broiler. In a small bowl, mix lemon juice with salt until the salt dissolves. Stir in oregano, slowly whisk in the oil, and season generously with pepper. Grill the swordfish steaks over high heat, as close to the heat as possible, turning once until cooked through, 6 to 7 minutes. Transfer the fish to a platter. Prick each fish steak in several places with a fork to allow the sauce to penetrate. Using a spoon, beat the sauce, then drizzle it over the fish. Something else that I'd be happy to have right this very minute. Okay. Does that look good? What's coming up next? Oh yeah, again. For this time of year, tell me how great this sounds. Tomatoes with herbs and almond vinaigrette. Again, any kind of tomatoes. It says here, when we come across a recipe that is both delicious and economical, we take notice. An eye-opener for us was the vinaigrette that Chef Dan Kluger, great chef, of New York City's Loring Place created for this salad, which highlights summer's juiciest and sweetest tomatoes. Kluger, named Best Chef 2012 for his work at New York's ABC, toasts chopped almonds in olive oil until they're crisp and golden. Perfect. Then instead of discarding that fragrant oil, he whisks in, this is so great, grated garlic, vinegar, lime juice, and a bit of sugar for a phenomenal dressing. Topped with, like as if that's not enough, this is so great, topped with red onion, jalapeno, mint, and basil. This dish is a total summer showstopper. All right, I have just made my decision that the next time I cook for people, I'm going to make tomatoes with herbs and almond vinaigrette, because that sounds extraordinary to me. Love that. Chickpeas and kale and a spicy pomodoro, sure, blah, blah, blah. What else you got here? I want the pan tomate. That's really what let's see if I skipped one here. Farro salad, that's great. Crab cake's fine. Chocolate cake. This looks good too, by the way. The Koji dogs. Roy Choi was the first chef without a brick-and-mortar restaurant ever named as a Food and Wine Best New Chef. The food truck guy from Los Angeles, and Koji dogs shows up here as one of the top 40 recipes. You got a hot dog, smoky, piled high with cabbage, kimchi, and cheddar. Go for that right now. There's something wrong with me. That's really what it comes down to. Crispy okra salad, I don't care. Antipasto with the green olive tapenade, I would have that in a heartbeat. But there's something I'm looking for here, which you really have to know. Chicken tikka masala. Yeah, who's going to argue with pasta with sausage, basil, and mustard greens, chowder, fried chicken shows up here. Pizza with smoked salmon, creme fraiche, and caviar. That's a Wolfgang Puck thing. That looks a little too good. But where's the one? Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm looking for in tomato season. Catalan tomato bread, or what they call pan tomate, I would say. And this is so easy and so good that if you don't make it, I am going to find you and beat you. Catalan tomato bread. The simple act of cutting a tomato and rubbing it on bread creates a magical bite. Pa am tomaquet, a specialty of Barcelona that cookbook author Steve Raiklen shared, offers irrefutable proof that the best dishes are often the simplest. Yes. Assemble it in the kitchen, or, this is fun, provide your guests with garlic cloves, halved tomatoes, a cruet of oil, a bowl of salt, and let them do the work. Let's go to the recipe, as if we don't know how to do this already. Catalan tomato bread. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you now the ingredients and the steps. Are you ready? 8 slices country-style bread. They're about a half-inch thick. 4 garlic cloves. It says optional. They're not. Not in my house. 2 very ripe tomatoes that are halved crosswise. Spanish extra virgin olive oil and some salt and pepper. I mean, bread, tomato, garlic, oil. Who's not doing this? Light a grill. When the fire is medium hot, grill the bread for 2 minutes per side until nicely browned and crisp. You with me? You can do this. Step 2, your final step. Give each diner a garlic clove and half a tomato. Have them rub their toast with the garlic, then with the cut tomato. The idea is simply to apply a thin film of tomato on the bread. Then they can drizzle their toast with olive oil, sprinkle on some salt and pepper, and eat. I would be so, I'm not even hungry. I would be so happy with that. And I am happy with that. Just a damn beautiful food, especially now with tomatoes being what they are, and bread. I mean, I'm excited by that. Now, because it mentions a suggested pairing, it says choose a light-bodied Trappist ale, which is interesting, such as Orval from Belgium, to balance the sweet tomato flavor. Now, speaking of ale, here's an article from the Daily Beast by Noah Rothbaum, who writes about liquor. And this particular article, in his Pennywise edit, says don't overpay for liquor. And he offers up 8 undervalued bottles of liquor. Stock up on these complex and delicious spirits that are relative bargains. Relative being the operative word here, because some of these are $100. Rittenhouse Rye, bottled in bond whiskey, $25. And Old Overholt bonded straight rye whiskey, $25. Anyway, if you're a rye drinker, I'm not, but if I were, there you go, there's 2. Here's one for you. On his list, Perry's Tot Navy Strength Gin. I am a gin lover. I like what I like. What's the one that I like? Martin's. Martin's to me is like, I had it at that Food and Wine Festival there in Esprit. I was blown away by how good it was, like even without doing anything to it. Love the gin, you just can't have too much of it. But he says here in the article, over the last decade, the gin category has exploded with dozens and dozens of new brands. Why the gin rush? Many upstart distillers need something to sell while their whiskey aged, but making gin isn't so simple, and many of their spirits aren't great. But some distillers, like New York Distilling Company in Brooklyn, excel at making both types of alcohol. It's Perry's Tot Navy Strength Gin. It sells for $25, which is a bargain considering how complex it is, and the fact it's a powerful 114 proof. Don't be scared. The gin is incredibly smooth and easy to drink. I'm also not a big Scotch drinker, but for those who do the single malt thing, he's got a brand in here. I mean, I don't know. This is showing up as a bargain, but I mean, it's not a bargain. All I'm saying is the price of single malt Scotch has skyrocketed over the last 20 years, and now he's recommending one called Glenfarclas 25-year-old. This will run you $1.75. I mean, literally 175 smackers. Let me move on. Monkey Shoulder blended malt Scotch, $33. Here's a rum for you. I like a good rum periodically. Takes skill and years of barrel aging to make a fine rum. Drinkers are willing to pay up for bourbon or rye. Many rums are still cheap. And so one to stock up on is the Barbancourt 5-star 8-year-old rum. That'll run you $28. So if you're a rum person or if you're a rum drinker, Barbancourt 5-star 8-year-old rum, 28 smackers. And bourbon. And I have come to love the bourbon since going on the bourbon trail there in Kentucky. Worth the trip. God, that was great. And he says, while top shelf for American whiskey has grown ever more crowded, you can still find some real bargains in the bottom shelf. For example, Evan Williams, bottled in Bond bourbon, is just $18. And you'd be hard-pressed to name a better whiskey for that amount. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Evan Williams, bottled in Bond bourbon, $18. My friends, our time this evening has come to a crashing close. I am sad to report because I was just starting to get peckish. I want you to know that it's my treat to be here with you. I thank you for tuning in. I'll be back with you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. for episode number 24 of All You Can Eat. Here, same bat time, same bat channel. And until then, I remind you that life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.